I am an athletic therapist, much like an athletic trainer in the US. First thing I look at is body position on the bike. Say if you just stood in the middle of a room and jumped up and down for 5 minutes, nobody would think to do that, but that's what a lot of the basic physical demand of riding down a trail is.
I'm excited to get to share a little something different with you guys today. Wendy and I have been working with professional mountain bike trainer Chris Lindor for about the last 5 weeks or so on one of his fitness plans. And today I got the opportunity to talk to him a little bit more about his philosophy behind fitness training and how that applies to mountain biking. He also shares some practical tips that you guys can take and apply to your mountain biking right now. And finally, he shares some fun stories about mountain biking that he's had over the years. Another awesome thing is that Chris has actually given our channel, in other words, all of you guys, a custom discount code to get 10% off any one of his fitness programs. So I'll have that at the end of the video as well as down in the description. One last thing before we dive into this interview is that I need your guys' help with an upcoming video. I think it'd be fun to kind of do a tongue-in-cheek review and rank of subscribers' bikes. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in and you want Wendy and I to rank and review your bike, then you can go ahead and email us a picture of your bike, actually a couple pictures of your bike, as well as all the spec, the geometry, what parts you're running, all that fun stuff. I've got my email down in the description, so you can send that over, and hopefully that video will be going live at the end of this month. But that's enough housekeeping stuff. Let's go ahead and dive straight into this interview now and get to know Chris Lindor and Alpine MTB Training a little bit more. Cool. So, Chris, just go ahead and introduce yourself. Anything you want to cover, whether it's your background as a trainer and mountain biking, your family, your work, whatever you feel like sharing.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I've had a quite diverse professional background. As it led me to here to starting up Alpine mountain bike training. I am an athletic therapist, much like an athletic trainer in the US. I'm also a strength and conditioning coach, as well as now I'm a level 2 mountain bike coach through the PMBI, the Professional Mountain Bike Instructors Association. I have an exercise science degree. Most of my career, at least the first half of my career, I was working in elite hockey in Canada, doing medical coverage, injury rehabilitation, and training as part of that. And the second half of my career, I've either been working in university sports, so working with the whole typical, the team sports, you think volleyball, basketball, soccer, hockey, as well as the individual sports like track and field, swimming, wrestling, doing primarily injury rehabilitation with them, along with a little bit of training with some of their coaches. And then I guess it was 2 or so years ago, I started up Alpine mountain bike training, and started becoming certified in the bike skills component. But Alpine mountain bike training has been heavy into the fitness side of mountain bike, as you've seen from the Gravity program. Other things about me, I'm a father and husband. I have 2 young boys, 3 and 5-year-old. I live in Calgary, Alberta, kind of right next to the Canadian Rockies, where we have some very good mountain biking. It gets overshadowed by what's going on in BC. But honestly, it's a very different style of riding out here. Yeah, so I think that just covers the basics of me as a professional in person.
Cool, man. Yeah, so sticking with mountain biking for a little bit now, how long have you been mountain biking, and how did you first get into it?
Oh, I've been thinking about that. It's about 12 years I've been into it. Kind of dabbled through that, and a lot of it started off as something to do in the summers when I wasn't as busy with work, and I just fell in love with mountain biking. Maybe 6 or so years ago, I was just like, you know what? I have all this knowledge of how to train, how to not just fitness, not just strength training and endurance training. I know how to. I have taken motor control, which is how people learn skills. I'm like, I have all this. Why don't I start up something and help people learn how to be fit, how to ride.
Essentially taking the connection from your professional life and applying it to your hobby. Basically taking that and then built a career out of it. Because there's not a ton of people who are doing what you're doing in terms of focusing more on I guess the fitness side of training. There's so many people out there who are doing skills training, which is so important. But I think at the amateur and even recreational level, there's not a lot of mountain bike specific fitness training. So that's rad.
Yeah. So actually that brings me into what I kind of look at myself as a coach, and because I also have searched the internet, reached out to other coaches, see what they're doing. And a lot of coaches, even though the fitness side is growing and there's few different, whether it's a company or an individual coach like myself that's coming up with an app for it, or a website, or what you see on YouTube. A lot of coaches really focus on one or two things. So they just do the fitness side, they just do the strength training side, they just do endurance training. So they're really about like powers, heart rates, the physiological response, or they just do skill stuff, and maybe they dabble in one of the other ones. Whereas I'm looking at this full package of how to train for mountain biking. Instead of some people I know, they get a subscription for strength training, one for endurance, and then go out and get some coaching, or they watch YouTube videos for skills coaching. As trying to package it all into one.
Nice, man. Yeah, see, that's been helpful for Wendy and I, of like even a lot of your because we were doing your gravity focus program right now, kind of the off-season one, and it's mostly, you know, mobility fitness, a little bit of cardiovascular stuff, but even like the strength training we're doing has a lean towards like, you know, essentially shapes that we're making on the bike with like the staggered stance and stuff. So it's cool how integrated everything is.
Yeah, and that's part of my big education for myself with training myself, and then now being a coach, is how do you make small tweaks to a program to make it work best for that sport and that person. You're still going to squat, you're still going to deadlift or hinge, you're still going to do pressing movements like bench press or push-ups, you're still going to do rows or pull-ups as your bulk of your program, but how do you tweak the little things around it to make that person the most athletic for their sport?
Yeah, specificity, that's so important in any training. Yeah. So I think a lot of people who watch this channel, myself included, don't necessarily put like racing, especially not racing at an elite level. We don't prioritize that as much. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like fitness, and we'll, you know, include strength, mobility, cardiovascular fitness, is still important for those more recreational riders?
Yes, I do, because mountain biking is a very hard sport. If you want to compare it to sports like golf or other stuff where it's still physical, but it doesn't have that outright huge output as in the pedaling you have to do, or even like riding down a trail is like basically a series of jumps and hops. So think about doing that. Say if you just like stood in the middle of a room and jumped up and down for 5 minutes, how exhausted you would be. Like nobody would think to do that, but that's what a lot of like the basic physical demand of riding down a trail is. And as well, people like into mountain are really into progression. Like I want to ride further. I want to ride harder trails. So my friends are riding those Black Diamond trails.
So even if you're just interested in mountain biking purely for the fun of it, the higher your fitness level is, the more fun you're going to be able to get out of it, essentially.
Yeah, it really, and it will depend on person to person. How big rides do you want to go on? How often do you want to ride? How technical of trail do you want to ride? How much time do you really reasonably have to train?
Cool. Well, one last kind of more like training philosophy type question, then we'll get into some practical tips. What do you think, you know, you've been hanging out with mountain bikers for, you said, like 12 years. What is the biggest misunderstanding that you think most mountain bikers have about fitness or training when it comes to mountain biking?
But a lot of times is basically how are you developing a program? Whether are people just look at, I'm just working on strength and that's all I'm going to do for a period of time, or I'm just going to work on endurance and of like just do Zwift. So they kind of pick somewhere where they're comfortable and just focus on that. Whereas mountain biking is a combination of all these factors, because you do need strength, you need mobility, you need to have like power to handle all the compression, all the vibrations on trail, as well as you need to have a lot of endurance. Because if you're just strong and powerful, if you don't have the endurance to keep repeating that strength and power, you will fatigue faster. So it's looking at like complete programs that combine multiple things, which is ultimately what I call sport specific, is how you build the program. So don't just focus on one thing, or don't do a program based on another sport, because the best programs will take a little bit from all the different areas of fitness and performance training to make something that will work for that sport.
So essentially going back to that whole specificity point of even riders who are already realize that fitness is important for them to be a better mountain biker, they're just kind of randomly cherry picking different things or hyper focusing on one area instead of embracing like the total amount of fitness that's needed to be a good mountain biker.
That'd be a good summary.
Yeah, I think because again, doing your program right now, the biggest I think awakening, especially for me, but for Wendy too, has been the mobility. Because even like the strength workouts are putting you through some pretty unique ranges of motion that you wouldn't get through like a typical, like bodybuilding split type of a workout,
Yeah.
and ways that I can totally already feel like opening up my body to make those shapes that we need to mountain bike well. So that's cool.
Okay, yeah, it's great feedback to hear.
Yeah. All right. Next, I want to jump into just like some kind of practical tips for people who might be watching this. Hopefully, we'll cover some things that hit just about everybody. But starting super general, from a training perspective, what would you say is like the most important thing that mountain bikers should be doing to be a better mountain biker from a training perspective?
Well, I consider, as I said, the whole realm of anything training. I would say skills, because honestly, like whether it's climbing skills, whether it's just like climbing smooth, like body position and on smooth climbs, technical climbing, and also on descending or general like hopping, cornering, jumping, dropping, those kind of skills is incorporate those, because ultimately you have to be good at your sport. Because like you could have somebody that's an extreme amazing athlete in another sport, extremely fit, but if they don't know any bike riding other than riding on a stationary trainer, get them on a mountain bike trail. And I remember this coming from hockey. I'd only stopped playing competitive hockey for a few years. I'm like, oh, I'm going to try mountain biking, and I went to visit my parents, grabbed a crappy bike, and went to the North Shore. And I'm like, man, this feels a lot like playing hockey, because I'm always falling over and taking hits. And like, they're right, because I wasn't going fast. There were small crashes, but honestly, as I was like learning how to ride the skill. And then if you're starting to develop skills, is at least have some level of endurance, not to fatigue so fast that your skills degrade. So those like ultimately kind of, it's skill and having at least some level of endurance to do it. As much as I think everything else is important, I think if you don't have either of those, you're going to run into trouble pretty quickly.
Cool, man. That's cool. Last thing, kind of training based, that I want to do is kind of present some scenarios of like different riders with different goals. And then I want to hear like what tips you'd give for them. And some of these you've covered a little bit, might be a little redundant, but just kind of what suggestion you would give this rider for where they're at right now. So let's say that this rider wants to go on longer, say like 15, 20 plus mile rides, but they don't have the stamina right now. What would you suggest for them?
For someone like that, it'd be without being able to do an analysis of what they're currently doing, a lot of it's probably going to be adding more riding volume. Whether that's being able to do slightly longer rides in the moment, like whether if they're only doing 45 minutes rides, can they do 60 to 90-minute rides when they get their ride, whether it's inside, outside, or can they do more frequent rides? Can they open up an hour a couple times more a week to get just that little bit more volume in?
Cool. Okay. Increasing volume for that. Nice. Next one, let's say it's a beginner mountain biker, been riding for, 6 months to a year, and they're struggling to keep up or even make it up the climbs on their ride. They're having to walk their bike, they're getting gassed. So climbing specific, maybe not technical, but just can't get up the climbs.
Okay. That one's going to be similar to the previous one, is just more volume, because I remember doing that when I started. Just like couldn't believe how fatigued I was, because I didn't have a well-developed endurance, because it was more sprint-based from my hockey career. Smoothing out your pedal stroke, because a lot of times people that are starting out just are master pedals. Can you keep like a smooth, like shift to an easier gear, make sure your gearing is not too hard, but now with mountain biking, gearing is usually pretty low if you have a somewhat modern bike. So can you keep a smoother cadence, so you're not grinding it out and trying to smash on the pedals.
Cool. All right. So again, more volume. I like that. I mean, I always tell people the best way to be a better mountain biker is to mountain bike more. So I'm glad to hear professional echoing similar things. I don't know, you might say the same thing for this, but let's say we've got a more like gravity bike park rider. The majority of their riding is either shuttle riding or lift access, but they're getting some bad like arm pump. They're having to take breaks on these long, 1,000 vertical feet descents because they're just getting super sore upper body.
Yeah, so first one that ever comes to arm pump, especially if you say it's somebody that's more beginner intermediate, first thing I look at is body position on the bike, because it's so common in mountain biking. Whenever you start to get like, maybe you don't feel the fear, but you're pushing yourself. It is to shift back on the bike, and when you shift back on the bike, you have to death grip your handlebars to not fall off the back. Like amazing how common that is. So that's always the first thing, because I can give you like the most powerful, strong, and endurance in your hands and forearms, and you're still going to have this problem if you don't have proper body position. Moving on from there, is like basically specifically training your grip. My favorite is a wrist roller because it's super easy. You can get them quite inexpensive online or at fitness stores. It's a bar that has a rope attached to it, and you attach a weight to the bottom, and you just roll it. You just do it like this, roll, do it both ways. That's one of my favorites. Other ones are loaded carries, called farmer's walks, whether you do it with dumbbells, kettlebells, and that's on top of a whole strength training routine for your body as well. Because if your arms and your legs fatigue too, you might start relying more on your hands. But if you progress, like the gravity program has that grip strength. I think most of the program is twice a week to develop that strength and endurance in your hands and forearms.
Neat. That's cool to hear about the form too. I don't think that's ever been explained to me, but that totally makes sense. If you're hanging off the back of the bike, you're just having to hold on that much more instead of having your weight more like downward focused and more centered on your feet. And I've seen that, I think, most often from riders who have been riding longer, like who started maybe before 2012, 2015, when, bikes had a super short reach and a super short, super steep head tube angle. And before a dropper post, you kind of had to, that was the proper riding position, was to hang your butt back over the bike, because the geometry just didn't accommodate a more aggressive, forward leaning body position. I love my dad to death. He's been racing cross country for longer than I've been alive, but he still has that just body way far back. He's 6'2", rides a medium frame because he just likes the bikes to fit the way they did in 2005, But all right, one last scenario for you. Going to talk about racing here. Let's say it's a mid-pack sport or Cat 2 enduro racer who's wanting to make it onto their first podium.
My tongue-in-cheek answer is start sandbagging in a lower category. But in general, commit to yourself as an athlete. One thing I do, I'm in my 40s. I still identify as an athlete. I know I'm not a high level athlete anymore, even in hockey, which is a sport I was very good at growing up. I still consider I'm athletic. I'm going to do athletic things. I'm going to train like an athlete. And I still have that competitive mindset, and I go do out some of the races, even though I'm not out to race to win the race. Or there has been some races where I think I can get on the podium just because of it's a more local race. The category I'm in is reasonable. So it is commit yourself as an athlete, and that includes the training side, the fitness side, the skill side, but it's also the racecraft, which is something I work on with a few of my clients as well as myself. Is okay, you want to perform as best you can in a race. What does it take to race well? So if you're looking at enduro, you're looking at your pacing strategies. What are you eating leading up? What do you have your nutrition strategy for the race? Does the race offer feed stations? Do you need to bring a backpack because it's just that long and unsupported? Do you need to have a backpack with everything you need? So it's that whole preparation that you need to take into consideration.
Yeah, cool. So just kind of embodying the mindset of an athlete. Yeah. From your fitness, but even like you're saying, to the race preparation. I've heard that analogy before too, and nutrition and having self-control with that is something I've always struggled with. There's like using this as kind of like a probing question or something of would an athlete eat this right now? If I was a professional athlete getting ready for a big event, would I choose to eat fill in the blank? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. And kind of embodying that athletic mindset. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I want to do is kind of transition back to you and your business, and just give you an opportunity to kind of share more of what you do and how people can find you. So what services does Alpine MTB Training offer right now? And are you planning on expanding that anytime in the future?
Yeah, so what I offer, what I focus on is coaching services, which is to do with, as we spoke about, the fitness, strength training, mountain bike skills coaching is primarily online. So I do them remotely through using software online. So if you head to www.alpinemtbtraining.com. You'll see coaching service, the different packages I offer in coaching with different levels of support. I also offer the pre-made programs, which I am actively working on building more. But the two main ones I have right now are the 12-week trail rider program and the 1 year on, which is the off-season gravity training program.
Nice. You covered a little bit earlier about your website, but what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Email would be best. alpinemtbtraining@gmail.com is usually the best way. I am on Instagram, the Alpine MTB Training on Instagram. So I usually get emails or DMs through Instagram are the most common ways. There is a form on my website to fill out that goes directly to my email. That's fine to answer as well. I'm also actively starting to post more on YouTube. About more educational type stuff, just tips and tricks. So I'm actively working on increasing that as well.
Cool. And I'll put all the links to the website, Instagram, and your YouTube channel down in the description. So people can check those out. Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. You are the first interview I've done with this channel, but a tradition that I want to start with you in future interviews is kind of wrap up question. And I've got 3 options that you can choose from, either like a funny and epic, a scary riding story, an inspirational quote, or just where you're planning on riding your bike this week.
Okay, I won't choose the last one because we just got a whole bunch of snow, so I'll probably be cross-country skiing. I might fat bike, but I'm going to tell you an epic riding story. It's still kind of every so often somebody that heard about it or was there talks about it. So out here in Alberta, we do get you can basically do big mountain type of riding. So you basically hike a bike up. So it was like a Tuesday night ride. We go out to this area. So we basically hike the most of the way up, and it's basically this descent is either go back down the trail you hiked up, or there's a scree section. So it's all like gravel, like all the different, this was like plate scree. So all these little like small dinner plate size rocks that you ride on. And it was rowdy. I start picking up speed. I'm like literally scared. And I ended up taking air. Like, and there's this area, you can feel a steep roll. I just full on air off of it, hard compression. And I'm like, I see where my riding buddies have all stopped. I'm like, great. They all managed to stop there. And I just passed them at Mach 10, like no control of my speed. I'm like, well, I'm getting back out of the Alpine. So I'm getting close. So there's small trees starting to show up. I'm like, I need to stop. And I just basically dumped my bike, and it was starting to mellow out a bit. And I go down, and I hear all my buddies yelling, screaming, laughing. And like, I have a look at my bike. My rear tire is wrapped around my rear triangle. Wheel was completely folded over. I got enough flat and ripped the tire off.
So you were riding down the last part of that scree patch just on your rim?
Yeah, probably half of it.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Yeah, and it was probably close. I'd have to go check the Strava right from how much elevation did I lose, but it was a lot. It was several hundred meters of elevation lost in a matter of a minute or two. And I was like, all right, I got my bike. I was actually able to get my tire to seat back on with a tube. And and they say we put it on a stump or slammed it in the tree to get it straight enough that I could pedal out. We're never doing it again.
Nice. All right, I actually have one more question I forgot to ask earlier, specific to you, because the reason I first heard about you was through RSD, and we're both RSD ambassadors. So I just wanted to hear like how you first heard about RSD, what's your favorite part about being an ambassador, and what is your favorite RSD bike?
So I was looking for a new hardtail. And I was like checking all the different companies. I'm like, hey, RSD, I kind of recognized it. It's like, hey, this bike looks awesome. Tiny little Canadian company, which I can associate with. I actually hadn't started an Alpine MTB Training yet. I was soon to start it. So yeah, they had an ambassador application on their website. And I was like, hey, I do a little bit of coaching. I'd already done a little bit of in-person coaching for some volunteer groups and like youth and stuff. So I was like, hey, I do a little bit of coaching. I'm a super avid mountain biker. My social media was just full of pictures of me riding in the Rocky Mountains, which was a good backdrop to like, hey, this is what this bike can do. So I was pretty stoked. It's like, great, I got this ambassador. Great, I want to buy that middle child. And the bike was absolutely awesome. So when they had the V2 Wildcat came out, so I'm like, yeah, I'm loving this bike. I'm loving this company. I'm going to buy this V2 Wildcat. And then I've loved that bike for the last few years. I now have the RS291 hardtail. That's hardtail now. So I have that bike. I have the fat bike because fat biking has become big out here. We got trails groomed. So I'm like, I'm going to get into fat biking. So I have the Mare. And now I'm waiting for my the RS. No, not the RS. It's the Wildcat 150. But I would say probably my favorite overall, the most versatile bike I had is the Wildcat, the one, I guess it was the V2, the 120, 125 that I had. As much as I love a hardtail, it's just what a full suspension opens up for you is something. And just that 120, 125, I think mine came with a shock that was 120 mil travel. I have upgraded to a shock that does give it about 125 or so, kind of like what the 125 does. It's just the capability of that bike. 125 mil travel, I have a 140 or 150 fork on it. And it being able to do full on like enduro races, these races out here, especially the ones like in Revelstoke and some places, that's EWS quality riding, and it like under a strong rider, it can like really not hold me back. It just shows RSD is a small company. They're not utilizing crazy hype and marketing, but they're building legit bikes that full on can shred.
Nice. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for taking the time for rescheduling to make it work. Those who are watching right now, Wendy and I are actually both doing Chris's Gravity off-season training program. So we're going to do a full review of that once we finish. So you'll be able to get some more like inside information into what Chris's training programs actually look like. But yeah, Chris, thank you for taking the time. It was awesome to get to know you more today and hear more about your passion for bikes and training and all that.
All right, yeah, great. Thank you for inviting me on. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and getting to know you.
I really enjoyed the opportunity to talk to Chris today. And like you heard a couple times in that interview, Wendy and I are doing one of his training programs right now. It's called the Gravity Off-Season Program. And it's been a really cool way to push us not just as mountain bikers, but as athletes as well. Chris is an extremely intelligent guy, and I feel like we as mountain bikers are lucky to have people like him in our sport who are willing to take their knowledge that comes from maybe more of a traditional sport background and apply it to mountain biking. You can learn more about Alpine MTB Training on his website and his Instagram. Both of those links are down in the description. And if you're interested in a program for yourself, I've got a discount code for you. Use RJW 10%, that's the percentage sign off, all caps, on their website to get 10% off any program. That's a great deal. Chris will walk alongside you through all this stuff. You can send him videos of what you're doing. He'll help you out. It's an insane value, and I guarantee it's going to make you a better mountain biker. If you've enjoyed this video, if you would please go down there, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. That helps the channel out a lot. And after you've done that, you know what to do. Get out there, grab your bike, maybe get a workout in. And if you go for a bike ride, hopefully we'll see you on the trails.